Gio, appreciate you hopping on today. Definitely excited to dive into the adult rec space. So thanks for being here, and fellow. Well, I never lived in DC, but I spent a lot of time. So got our DC squad rolling in.
Yeah, happy to be here. Excited about the space. I've been working in, I guess, adult social sports for, I guess, since 2010. So it's been, they always say like a hit song. It's like it's popular to other people after like 10 years working on it. So it kind of feels the same way.
Dude, that's wild. I feel like that's like 14, 15 years already. But I guess give us the inspiration. When did you get into it? Where was this opportunity, this gap you saw 2010 where you're like, all right, I'm going to start Volo and we'll see where it leads?
Yeah, so to be honest, it didn't start at all as a business idea. I was playing in social sports, like I was living in DC, moved down here, I was in finance, um, and played like pretty competitive flag football leagues and softball, and then played in this kickball league, and I was like, wow, this is fun, but like, all right, like this is I'm paying like some $65 every few weeks, so I'm definitely there's definitely something here. There's a lot of people that do it, and I ended up meeting all my friends through it, and then I was still working full time in finance, and I was basically like, I really thought one of the issues with the at the time was like women would quit after the first few weeks. So it would be like, well, like why am I going to play in this league if there's always like special rules for me and like all these guys are hyper competitive. So I'm like, why don't I create like some kind of league where I was single at the time? I'm like that women would want to play in the entire league. So I
Dude, this is
started
like
the original.
Facebook all over again. This is literally the movie The Social Network. I love it. Keep going, sorry.
Hey, I mean, 20, 25, 26-year-old, people that are single, it's like we trying to find a way. It's like I'm joining this league and all the women always quit after like the third or fourth week. And you're always trying to call everyone to be like, hey, can you come play? So I ended up starting the Baltimore Bocce League, actually, and I was living in DC and I was commuting up there. And the whole idea was nothing about sports, and bocce is, as you can tell by my name, I'm pretty Italian. Something that my family is all from literally in Baltimore. And
Really,
something bocce.
I would have never guessed you're Italian. I had no idea.
Yeah, I know, right? Dead giveaway. Um, so bocce was something that like my family played. Anyone could play, whether you're like 5 years old or like like my nana who's like in her 80s playing bocce, and it was something that you didn't really need to be any good athletically, or it didn't matter your age. So it was something that we started up in Baltimore. We actually didn't even play on courts. We played on top of Federal Park. The whole idea was like, hey, I can click a button. I don't need to know anybody. I can go play this fun game that I don't even really know how to play yet once a week. And then we're going to go to a bar restaurant after that. We have like a reserved area. And we kind of took it more of like, hey, it's going to be a little bit more about the social and like, the shirts, and like it's not really about the game. It's about the
Yep.
community. So then that was 2010. Fast forward, end up, that end up sort of growing into these like skee ball leagues. So we had like the New York City Skee Ball League, the Denver Skee Ball League. So we need something year round. Bocce players need something to do in the winter.
Yeah.
And then I sort of learned about this space, which is adult social sports, and there's clubs across the country. There's actually an industry association called the SSIA. So there's like, I think, I don't know, probably 60 to 100 clubs
Oh, wow.
varying in sizes across the country in every major market. Sort of learned about that and ended up growing into, some other sports and kind of growing it from there. But the idea, the inspiration was always around community and basically tying technology with it, to saying like, hey, even when we didn't have our own technology, it was like, hey, I can click a button. I don't need to have a team. Because for a long time, like if you played in like adult sports, you would have to like your company would sign up, or like you'd have to go through like a church, or like you'd have to know someone to get in the league, and there was like a form you'd fill out. So this was like, hey, whether it's me, whether it's the two of us, whether it's three people, like we sign up together, we'll get put on a team. But I sign up, I pay, and I show up. Everything's provided, and then there's like a bar restaurant after for a social thing, and that grows, and then we grew it in Baltimore. That was original market. That's where I'm from. Um, and it was really popular, because people, I think, and even still to this day, like they want to socialize. And then we started growing in other markets. We had some acquisitions. Actually, we bought some other clubs in New York, Boston, San Diego. We grew some other markets organically, but we found that there was this massive need for this because, you know, it was almost like people used to just go out and play. And then, you know, youth sports got really a lot more organized. And then adult sports kind of people were like, when they graduated college, like, okay, like, how do I go do that again? Now, like,
Mm,
you know, I have youth sports that's organized, I have college that's organized. Then I graduate and like, how do I go play soccer? You know?
mm,
So, and there's also like, I guess, a decent amount of red tape where it's hard to get permits or get into schools, you know, and it's gotten increasingly harder over time. And people also want the technology solution, I think, as well. So put all that together, and it's kind of like voila, you get to where we are with Volo now, which is, hey, I go on the Volo app, I click a button, I can join a league, I can go play pickup tonight, I can go see where we are in various cities, I can go to social events. So kind of from the original days of the Baltimore Bocce League, which I just remember going into bars in Federal Hill, buying people a beer so I could get their email address. Like that's how the league started. To now, you know, with over 500,000 registrations, you know, we're in 9 markets. Something that we've, you know, I can't believe how large it is, but we've gotten all kinds of different stuff. We built our own technology. We even have some of like our own places that we run called Club Bolo. So it's been it's been a crazy journey. I'll tell you that.
that's awesome. So really cool on the, we'll call it the guerrilla marketing to get some of the first league set up. I'm assuming you're not going to new cities yourself and having beers and handing out cards anymore. I know you mentioned some acquisitions, some organic, you know, what's your go to market? If you tomorrow say, hey, we're going to this city, we want to add these sports, how are you approaching that and how are you building it up?
I mean, we've done it multiple ways. Like we've done stuff where we've just gone to like a Denver and we started organically. DC was the same way actually. Um, the the best way is you have a lot of local operators who have a lot of, you know, they're passionate about it. They're great. We'd like to team up with them, you know, who's ever like, let's say a market like Houston or something, and it's like, oh, like we want to go to Houston. We know the local operator who's been kind of there, a few of them, and say, hey, who wants to basically team up with us, you know, and acquire them, or they can merge in and sort of do that. That's probably the best. Like that's our ideal way to kind of do it because instead of having to learn that market from like the ground up, and every community is a little bit different, right? There's all kinds of stuff and local know-how that you're just not really going to know. So that's the ideal way that we would do it.
And then from a business model perspective, are you subscription based? Are you on an annually fee, or, you know, what's sort of the model around this? Or there may even be some separate or different ones in different cities.
Yeah. So there's multiple, right? So we have, you know, you can just sign up for a league and pay, hey, I pay $75 and I get 7 weeks to 8 weeks of soccer. So I play on my league every Tuesday night. We have a subscription model where, hey, I'm a Volo member, where I get discounts to leagues, and then I basically get unlimited like pickups and what we call daily play, and I get, you know, some things included in that. It's really, you know, there's a lot of social events included in that as well, and then we have like private rentals where, hey, people can go, they can just go book a pickleball court and go to our app and do that, or they can just go to an event. I mean,
Hmm.
ideally, what we see ourselves as now is like, I you know, I go to the Volo app and I'm gonna go Volo tonight, which means I'm gonna go do something, you know, sports related, could just be a social event. Um, and it's something where people can just go and find something to do with other people. It's always, the big thing is genuine human interaction. We think that's like a really important thing, that society needs. You know, it's weird to think about when we started it, like, hey, we're gonna go have fun and meet people. And now we, especially after COVID and everything going on, like they call it like the epidemic of loneliness, we really are a way for people to meet people, especially if they just move to a city and find those friendship groups, find your significant others, like find those core people in your life. Like we feel like, yeah, sports is a part of that, but you're playing kickball, you're not playing to go to college, right? You're just playing to
Hmm.
meet people. And some, you know, so I would say 50% of our people, they're playing the sport because they like love the sport. They want to go play competitive or competitive-ish volleyball. They want to get active. They want to do something. And then the other 50%, they're playing something just to be a part of the community, something that's in their weekly schedule with their friends, you know, and really they're there to make friends, which is great, and be a part of our community.
Yeah. How'd you go about scaling your internal team, and what does that look like? From each city have an operator? Do you have people that run the individual leagues? What's sort of
Yeah.
the corporate internal structure look like?
So we have, it was real fun before and after COVID.
Yeah.
That really was a fun time in our lives. But no, so each city has what we call a managing director or an MD. So they're really the person in charge of that city, and they have a team anywhere between 10 to 15 people that directly reports in one way or the other into them. And then you have your national operations team, that's supporting whether it's customer service, whether it's, new initiatives. And then you have, like your HR, legal, all those things as well. But yeah, we're in live events and live sports, so you have to have a pretty big local team in order to execute that. So every market that we're in has an office, and like I said, 10 to 15 people. And we're about 150 employees across the country that are full time.
Very cool. How many cities? How many different sports?
So we're in, if you count New Jersey separate from New York City, we're in 9 markets, and we do 13 different sports, but we're always kind of like, it's funny, people from youth sports are like really focused on the sports because they're all like sort of like their own thing. And we're kind of like, when you join, sort of like, I always call it like athleisure wear. Like you go buy athleisure wear to go get active. So people will play all kinds of different sports, but our most popular sports is kickball. And that's because it's the big one for, hey, I want to go just do something and go have fun. I want to go to the bar or restaurant after and meet people. And then you have like soccer, volleyball, flag football, pickleball is really big now. Basketball's, a huge sport. But then it depends on like the time of the year. Like, people get really excited about like skee ball at bars or dodgeball in the winter, just to do something to be active with their friends. So, we have all kinds of different sports. We even have like sailing and different things like that people can kind of do.
And what do you have on the roadmap from a city like expansion plan? It sounds like you're mainly on the East Coast, 13
Um,
sports.
yeah, we do have, San Francisco, San Diego, Denver. We'd like to be in some more warm weather markets, because we're very East Coast centric at the moment. That's where we're from, and these are huge sports markets. But yeah, we'd like to see us double the cities where we are in the next few years and really focus on some of these warm weather markets. Just from a business standpoint, the seasonality is tough, right? Because
Right.
you have a lot less capacity in the winter months.
And then as you've grown the business, did you start out bootstrapping? Have you raised money? What's been we'll call it the fundraising side, or any learnings, insights there? And then obviously what it looked like.
So we didn't raise any money from 2010 to 2021. We actually did acquisitions. We created our own software. We did it completely bootstrapped. And then we raised some money in 2021, and we've continued to raise money. It's a little unorthodox, but I would say like right now we're like in the process of like closing out like our Series B round. And a lot of that has to do with, we built out our own technology where we have like our own league operational platform, as long as the Volo app. So we have all of our own full-time engineers. We've built out the whole tech side. We've also built like our brick and mortar, like we have club Volos. So those are things that were pretty capital intensive, along with doing some acquisitions and some other things. So it's just kind of like, okay, like if you're going to start really getting serious about technology and having 400,000 or 500,000 users, you've really got to invest in it. And there's a lot of opportunities with just, hey, I go on my app, I can sign up for stuff, I can talk to my team. If someone else wants to put an event, not us, like on an event, and we're just a marketplace, on our app as well. Like that's something that's been pretty interesting. Like I said, this whole idea of I can go Volo tonight. And so that's what we've seen as like a big growth standpoint. And really the purpose is like, we want to grow, like we want to go physically to other cities, but also grow like our offerings. Like one of the things is, you kind of tie those together where we want to be able to go on our app and you can book a pickleball court. You don't have to join a league, you can just go rent a court, and then you can, send to your friends and say, hey, do you want to play? When you have, 50, 60,000 members in some of these markets, and then now you can give them other stuff to do that's outside of league play, where they can go play, whether it's a pickup anytime they want, or they can go do a private rental. Like that's kind of, or they can go do an event. That's the space that we're getting into. And I think you see it, like our demographic, they want to go play sports, but they also, they're really a social demographic as well. So how do we make it as easy as possible for them to get more social in our community?
Give us the rundown on the adult. I'm calling it the adult rec market. You're calling it what? The adult social market?
So adult social sports is kind of, I would say, what people in the industry call it, but
Okay.
I don't think you're that far off. Yeah, I mean, so from what we kind of see, there's probably around 60 to 70 like clubs that are doing, let's say, over $500,000 a year. There's probably I don't know, 20 clubs doing $2 million plus a year, and then there's probably five, maybe a little bit more doing anything that's more than $5 million, 4 to 5 million plus. So it's like an interesting space, and there's a lot of, like I was saying before, like depends on how you see the space. Like it's really evolving quickly, especially with like all these pickleball clubs, all these different things that are sort of popping up, and it's like it's that merge of sports and then entertainment and your sort of social life. But what it has been, and there's like a saying before, there's an industry association, the SSIA, that has been around for, I think it's been around for 12 years,
Okay.
and it's kind of like been at first I was like, is this really a thing?
Mm,
So it's almost the industry that's evolved, and from those church leagues and rec leagues and almost beer leagues to kind of where it is today, where it's like, wow, like there's, we have some markets with 80,000 members in them all playing. I mean, that's crazy, but it's just not something that's really, it's, even though it's been around for a while, it just isn't really known. So,
yeah.
and I would say participation wise across the country and just in like adult social sports, there's probably anywhere between like 3 to 5 million. And if you count like those pickleball leagues and country clubs and all that stuff, it's probably closer to like 10 to 20 million. I don't even know how big country clubs are, but from the numbers that we see, it's like, hey, like it's basically between, depending on how you count it, between 3 to 10 million people that are participating every year in the
Oh
United
well.
States.
So 3 to 10 million U.S. adults currently actively participating. Do you look at international at all, or?
Yeah, there's groups. Yeah, there's groups that do adult social sports in London, in Australia, in Canada. Canada, there's a lot. It's a pretty active group in Mexico as well. So it's all across the world. I mean, especially like Europe, it's really tied to like soccer. Specifically, there's some groups that do a lot of soccer over there, and then in Australia, it's interesting. They have like the government's really tied into it a lot more, so it's expanded quicker, but it's really subsidized by the government. And it's
Mm,
interesting, like I said, it's really hard to tell where the space starts and begins right now, because it's like, all right, if you're just talking about adult, as you call rec leagues, okay, between cities and private, like the adult social sports industry, there's one size. But if you go a little bit deeper, like what do you count and not count for that? And is it only league players? But now we're seeing a lot of people that either just want to book courts on their own, or what we call daily sports, where they just want to be able to go to an app, click a button, and go show up at a field and play. Um,
what uh, what age demographics do you see the most people
Hardcore is,
fall into?
yeah, 21 to 35. It's really the people that,
Me,
there's a huge wave that they move to a city right out of school. They don't know anybody. It's their first job. This is their community. They end up playing with that team for 5 or 6 years, and some people end up, really liking it and play a little bit longer, but that's usually the lifetime of our member.
got it. So a little bit better. We'll just call it from a churn wise than a youth sports. But how do you manage that? I guess getting to them right when they come out of college, and then keeping them as long as possible, so you don't have that
Well, and
churn
that's,
consistent.
yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing, because as like pickleball has like become bigger, we've seen like the demographics sort of shift, and our job is to say, hey, maybe they don't want to, like, they either don't want to be like really really social anymore, like they have like a lot of responsibilities. And what we've seen is, hey, by the time I'm 30, it's like my job is really important. I don't have the time. So how do we cater to them? And it's making it so, hey, they have the app and they can just go book stuff on their own time. So it's more on demand. That's kind of what we see there. And making sure that when the next graduating class, like we're always present, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
however that is for marketing dollars, to make sure that they know who we are. But always the best thing that we have is word of mouth, right? So it's like,
Right.
there's nothing better than, you know, hey, what is that Volo thing? And then people saying, hey, that's how I made my friends. Or it's usually you're getting invited to a team to play. That's like the best thing, right? Because now you're getting invited to our community naturally. So that means our product's always got to be on point as well. And the product is important because it's not just like on the field; it's also at the bar or restaurant as well. Like, there's music there, there's DJs. We want to feel like it's a exciting thing that you're doing. I'm gonna go play kickball, but I'm gonna go like dance later. I'm gonna go have fun. Like I'm really looking forward. This is the best time of my week.
I will say, and I'll tee it up with the question after this. I was in DC a couple months ago, and you see Volo bags and shirts, and you guys have the purple color everywhere. It's obviously incredible branding. How did you go thinking about that? I mean, what's the basis behind the name Volo, and what's how have you approached? We'll just call it the merch side, or the again because that spurs that word of mouth you're just talking about.
Yeah, I would say one of the best things we ever did was make on the shirts just say Volo because people they might not know who we are, but as soon as they know, they're like, I see these shirts. If you're in the city where we are, you will see our people everywhere. So Volo means to fly in Italian, and Volo Bocce actually means like when you actually throw the ball up, and that's the original Bocce that we played. So we always look at it like, we make cities fly, like we make them better. And when we, did the branding, we loved it. It's really tied to our roots. It ties to what we do. We also make cities fly, like we make them cooler. Um, so yeah, that's what Volo means. The other thing I'll say, and I'll just mention it, is like we have a pretty large. If you look on the back of the shirts, it says we play so kids can play for free. And there's a big tie-in to the Volo Kids Foundation. So like I mentioned before, we're from Baltimore. So after all the Freddie Gray unrest, there was this big issue of like, youth sports and what's happened with like the privatization of youth sports and like, kids that are good and kids who have money. So there's always recreation desert. So it's kind of unique. Like at that time, that moment in time, we were pretty small, but we had a really good like operational foundation to run leagues. And we ended up meeting with Brandon Scott, which is now Mayor Brandon Scott. He was a councilman at the time. And everyone in the city was like, "What can we do? How can we make this place a better place?" And we were like, "Oh, I'm like, we could run youth sports." And then Brandon's like, "Well, you're gonna have to do it. We'd have to do it for free." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know how we'd make any money for free." So we ended up kind of starting this nonprofit side. And the quick thing is, hey, we start adult leagues at 6, start kids leagues at 3. Kids play from like 3 to like 5. They practice a little bit and they play a game. But it's on one day a week, so it's super simple. They get a shirt and then the foundation of it is all backed by our league operations. But if you coach in the kids league, you get to play in the adult leagues for free, but that's a whole separate entity. But that's really been like a big part of when I say we make cities better. Like in Baltimore, we'll have over 9,000 kids that play for free this year.
Wow.
And it's like a big thing that we work with the cities, we work with partners on, but it's a part of the Volo brand as well. So whether you're playing sports with us, going to our events, or volunteering with our kids, it's something that it's something that people want to do. Like some people don't do anything else except for volunteer because that's how they want to spend their time, and that's the network that they want. But I would say it's a big part of who we are. It's a big mission of ours. It's sort of it's interesting to think about it as we grow. But if you really look at it, it's the community of our people, and it's kind of making the communities better where we are.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't realize you have, if you think about it, sort of this full scale where it's like, hey, here's our adult league, but then we're going to take care of your kids at the same time. And so you create that full sale pipeline. When did you know that this was going to be a legit business? You start 2010, you're just on the side. I'm sure you have some other job at the time. When were you like, oh, shoot, like we got something really cool and special here. I'm diving all in.
I mean, I think it's interesting. Like I quit because a job I basically like got this job created for like social media, and I was like all in, and they were like, "Hey, you're not qualified." So it was like in my 20s, I was just really, and I had started this on the side. I was like, you know what, screw that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do this until I go find something else. So the answer is I didn't really know it was going to be anything, other than I really enjoyed doing it. And so I went all in. I think I went all in, it was like 2013 when I quit my job, because before that I was just doing it, part time. I would say when we started to, you know, I don't know. That's an interesting question for me, because I don't know if I ever really think it's like that, because it's kind of like it's it. I'm just I always say this, like, I'm just trying to make what we do better every time. Like, what can we add to make the best league the best thing? And I try not to think about anything bigger than that, other than, hey, every experience needs to be really good. But I would say we have like a company summit every year where everyone gets together, and I think when uh, I give like closing remarks or opening remarks, that and you see 150 people, that and some of them have worked here. People that worked here before COVID, there's like roughly, let's say, 20 people there. They've
Yep.
they look at you and they're like, their families have depended on this income, and it's been a legit business. So that, I think at that moment, when that families, incomes, and they've been able to, you've seen people start here and then have their own families and that kind of stuff. I think that's the moment when you realize it's a legit company.
Yeah. That's cool. And did you ultimately, and what's up guys? Wrapping up here. Did you end up meeting your girlfriend, wife through it? Like, I mean, that seemed to be
Yeah.
like your main goal when you started the company was meet
Yep.
my
That's
significant other. So this is all bonus ad now, right?
Yeah, I was running a bocce league in DC on the National Mall, and I met my now wife. So it's been a success with that.
Yeah.
And then we have our son Leonardo. So hopefully he'll be in the Volo Kids League pretty soon himself.
Very cool. And then what was the acquisition strategy as you start going on? Like, what are you looking for? Are you metric based? Are you just city based? What do you really do when you dive in and go, hey, this is an area, or this is a company, or a club we want to pursue and put it under the Volo brand?
So the first ones we looked at, right? The first big one we did was in New York City. That was like a big moment. And then when we look at it, it's like, yeah, you want to look at the club, but you also like one of the next big ones was Boston. And it's just like how much you're looking at the margins, and in this industry, it's interesting because in some cities it's 150 to $200 to play in a league. In some cities it's like 60. So we want to be in the cities with, and your costs actually aren't necessarily that much lower. It's just what the cost of living is and like what people are used to paying. So we try to target cities where there's obviously a huge population, and then also that people are willing to pay more to be a part of the product. Like, we want to be in as many places as possible where people are willing to pay more money. That was kind of our original acquisition strategy. But I think as we look to double, it's a little bit different. Like, there are certain cities, as I said before, like we're very northeast heavy, so we're looking at places that are more warm weather, so we can have more year round, and also looking at places like we want to be in every major city. Um, as you start to look at like big sponsorship deals and other stuff like that, so we kind of have to be in certain places like to be able to do those deals.
Makes sense. And then we'll transition this and open it up for you, Gio. But as you were building, you're starting to take it more seriously. Obviously, you sort of got thrust into the founder seat. What were some of your main takeaways? Is now you're leading a team of 150 employees, substantial revenue, a Series B. What are some of your main learnings that you've come across? Because you didn't set out to do this; it sort of just fell upon you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's, there's a lot of lessons there. From not raising any money and bootstrapping, you really learn about the business because you have to, or else you go out of business. And then to raising money and learning how that works, and how to manage the boardroom and how to do all those things and how to position yourself. I think it always comes back to your team, and you have to surround yourself with a team that you work with. The biggest lesson for me, it's at different times. It's when to kind of, okay, like, I need to be involved with this, or I need to hire this out. But you have to have that core of like what your business is, and what that, like, what's your easy, like the simplest metric of success. You have to have that, and you always have to have that, like looking at that. And then, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like what's good enough, like that's something that's been drilled into me from like coaches and stuff. Like what's good enough, what's good enough. Let that be, and then use your metrics or your budget even to say, yeah, that was good enough. Don't, it's easy to get with growth. It's easy to get like, have an ego and to be like, this is all me. But at the end of the day, like you have to look at it, was it successful, and then also put in this wasn't successful, and just look back at the numbers and give it a certain, when you're creating like a new product, like, hey, we're launching private rentals, and how much did it cost to build? What's our, how do we want to roll this out? What's success look like, and what's failure look like? So if something you build, it doesn't make sense, or maybe you acquire something and it doesn't work, you have to be ready to sort of like be done with it. It's definitely, it's hard. It's really, really difficult. I would say the other thing is, when we first raise money, you're excited and early on, like everything's absolute. This is probably normal for every founder. But then after you do it, like you're scared all the time. You're like, wow, do I really, like you're nervous that you're doing it, and to me, like when your team's worried about raising money and stuff, that kind of means you're ready, because you understand like what it is, like you understand it's a big deal, and you're you're not, what it means, so you're not cocky anymore. Almost, you're like, okay. Because I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm like, yep, you can kind of tell. I'm sure people could tell with me, like, this guy's not ready yet. He definitely thinks he knows too much, and he's kind of has to go through some learning a little bit more.
Yeah, no, that's great. I guess if anyone else wants to chime in, I have a few follow-ups, and my apologies. We're testing different things out with these group chats. We were going to get it done and open it up, but now from the beginning, we're going to have everyone on. So we just did a whole 30-minute convo. So,
Giovanni, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Did you acquire from Steve Stoloff?
So he sold it to another company in between when I acquired it. But yeah, I know Steve. I know Steve very well. But he had the company out in San Diego, Vavi. Yeah. He had sold it to another entity, and we had actually bought it from the other entity who he sold it to.
Got it. Yeah, just small world. I knew Steve from SDSI here in San Diego, and kind of watched the growth of Vavi back in the early days. So congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He really was a big he founded the whole industry association as well. So he's been instrumental in our industry.
Do you work directly with cities to sort of become the recreational component, or do you do it separately?
Yeah. So there's a huge public field or permit component to what we do in some cities. So having a relationship, in some cities we have a very robust relationship that even goes through the Volo Kids program. Like in Baltimore, we have 9,000 kids that play through the kids program in partnership with the city. We do a lot of stuff with them together. New York, we do some stuff with the city as well. But we also have, private fields and private schools that we do. And then we have what we call them as club volos, which is space that we build and manage ourselves. So ideally, you kind of have like a third that's public, a third that's like private, and a third that you run. Because you don't really want to just have one of those pockets, because, things happen.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then Gio, I'm curious. I know Prem here is building a new company in sports. We got some earlier stage ones as well. How did you go about the managing the cap table per se, right? You raise a bunch of money. A lot of people know you have a lot of money. How have you managed, that balance of bringing new people on versus, hey, I'm sure, I'm guilty of this too. It's not in a bad way, but a company raises a lot of money. You're reaching out, hey, what's going on? How can we help? Where can we add value? How have you sort of filtered through that from both employee perspective, but then also like service firms that are like, oh, they just raised a Series B, they must have some money now for whatever XYZ service they provide?
Yeah, so the good news about bootstrapping for, I guess, the first 11 years is other people in your company we make a joke, we're money in the bank girls. Like, I can tell my team a lot of stuff. Nothing really registers to them until it actually happens or something. And they really value that money, meaning, if we raise it, like, hey, there's a purpose for that, and that's just like how because of that time, we built it that way. It wasn't just like, I mean, I feel like a lot of companies, they go and raise money and then they have to feel like they have to spend it on all these different things. Whereas I feel like we're culturally not, like, almost like to a fault sometimes. We're like, oh, we'll just do this ourselves. We've actually had to go the other way and say, hey, we do need to use a firm for that or an agency for that. We can't just figure that ourselves. That's actually hurting us that we can't do that. So it's an interesting balance. Like, we kind of came at it the other way. Yeah, and I mean, I would say it's culture, right? Like, it's we want to do a really good job, and we are all of our, we talk about margin all the time. We talk about that. Everyone's aware. We're very transparent with our financials locally in departments. We talk about it all the time. Like, great, we have money, but that doesn't mean that our model's working in the city. So, and if you want something funded, whether that's a new product, we want to do something on, we want to build a new revenue stream. We want to go build a Club Volo. We want to go buy a city. Okay, does that make sense, and why? Because there's 10 other ideas of things that we want to do. So, like, why do you want to do that? And then kind of, the money's got to make sense, but then, like, does it fit with what we're doing? So it's just having that conversation all the time, I think, is helpful. And then going through that process so people understand that, like, I would say we've, done a raise, and I feel like we're probably, weirdly enough, tighter than we've ever have been on money, because we're just looking at it a lot more than we ever have.
And do you see opportunity for companies? A lot of people, they want to go to college sports programs and land partnerships, or NBA, the traditional teams. Are there opportunities for tech and other sports tech verticals to come into the adult rec space? Like, is it prime now to come in and land real contracts, or what's that space look like?
Yeah, I mean, we've done some pretty big things, but I think we've had partnerships with some professional sports teams. But it's, if you have 50 to 80,000 members in a market, I think we're ready. It's just making sure there hasn't been a lot, so it's kind of a new industry, and like some of the things that have happened, it's kind of like more mom and pop. So it's figuring out how that works. But I think specifically with, some, give an example, like some AI technology where they're just like, you're able to video highlights and stats and stuff like that. Yeah, that totally makes sense for us. Driving people to professional sports teams and games, and as fans, I mean, that's something that's pretty big in England already. Like, they have all the adult sports are basically tied in with like their soccer teams or football teams, as they call them over there. So that I think we're absolutely ready for that. And how do we, anything that's happening, especially in a local community, we're ready and primed to sort of drive people to engagement with different partners or brands in different ways.
Anyone else got anything? Questions, insights, adult rec space, scaling companies, fundraising?
I mean, Gio, I'll jump in one more question. In terms of tech side, are you guys pretty reliant on tech? Is there a lot of internal tech that you guys have built?
Yeah, we built our entire back end. We used to be on League Apps, which was like a youth sports software, and we started really in like 2017 building some of it, and then really going on to like using our own platform in 2019, and now to the point where we have 11 people on our engineering and tech team. Built our own app out, so we have like the admin facing and the consumer facing side, to the point where other third parties can put their stuff on. So yeah, we see a lot of opportunity with the tech side, where people are able to, whether they're signing up for our stuff or they're just able to find stuff. Like, you live in San Diego, if you want to go play pickup volleyball tonight and find a group that's playing, you can go do that, like, on demand now. And that's all tech enabled, right? Because it's like, when the leagues would happen, you'd sign up, and then when your league's going to happen, you get a schedule, whatever. Now with the sort of on-demand play, it has to be sort of tech enabled. There's some intricacies with that.
Got it. And you guys does it track scoring and everything else on the tech as well?
Yeah, I mean, most of our scoring, like for lack of better terms, the ref is putting the scores in and stuff. So your schedule, standing, scoring, And then, you can talk and chat with your teammates. A big thing for us, RCPing for games. So if people aren't going to show up, we kind of know that's the worst thing that can happen in our space is a forfeit. Like literally everyone hates it. And then starting to be like, getting, hey, I'm a Volo member. Here's my deal I get at the bar, and you can kind of show them that. So kind of integrating with the social as well. But yeah, it was, first you build the tech, then how do you get everybody on it? So one of our big things is simply when you go to any of our activations, you have to check in. So you have to hey, here's the code. I have to check in with our host. We have a host app as well. So the staff app, we call it our Uber driver side of it. So that was a big deal because how do we get everyone onto our app? And then how do we build features that make our current product better, right? Because we want to build all this other stuff, but we want to make sure our people are, how are our people that are playing in leagues, they all talk with each other, they're all on GroupMe or some kind of text. Well, we need to make that in our app, right? So how do we, and how do we get better? So we want to make sure they rate how their experience was every night, so then we can kind of see that. So it's just, getting people on and getting them to interact with it, with a business that didn't have really its own technology before has been, it's definitely, that's been a really difficult thing is how to use technology. Cause I didn't come from a tech background. So I've had to really learn how that world works. And I would say I want to talk about what scares me the most about spending money. It's on that stuff.
Makes total sense. Is part of what you're building on the tech side also a payment processor, or do you guys just use the back as Stripe or something like that?
Yeah, we have back end for that. So yeah, we haven't really looked at building that piece yet.
And then Alex has a question, Gio. He said, what could you advise in terms of PR strategy? I'm talking about PR among investors and business partners. How did you build your strategy at the earlier stages?
So, I think our strategy, we never raised money. The first time we went out to go raise money was 2020, February, which was unfortunately a really bad time. So we got punched in the face for a year straight. But it's really you got to have the simpler the plan. And the hardest thing for me to learn was I would just talk about my product all the time and I get so into details and people couldn't even follow you. But I was kind of trying to defend that this was even a space and justify it. And it was someone was like, dude, you don't need to justify that what you're doing is legit. Just even if you don't believe it, no one even understands what you're talking about. You're going too far into the weeds. So, hey, what do you need? And then try to tie it back to what they're used to kind of seeing in some ways. Okay, guys, I need money for this. We're going to do acquisitions. What are the buckets that investors are typically used to hearing? And, start to understand that a little bit and tie I don't know if this comes through, but I always want to be genuine, right? You don't want to be disingenuous, but you got to be quick to the point, make it simple and tie to language that makes sense. My first pitches were an hour and a half long. Some people just wrote you off just because of that. Even though it's a great company and some of those first investors have really made a lot of money doing that, but I just couldn't, we were talking two different languages. So practice makes perfect with that stuff. We went out to raise money in the middle of COVID, and the best thing that happened to me was I just eventually called up someone. We had a personal connection to someone who was an investor. He's like, hey, can I just go through my deck with you? And he worked with me every week for months to try to get us to a point where we were it took that long, and someone just giving us the time to get the deck right. But at the end of the day, it still has to be you. So it's that tough kind of push and pull. But the strategy for us was we're going to go, here's our baseline. We're going to go do acquisitions. Here's our technology. Here's what we think it is. And here's what our plan is. And the other part that I think, if I was investing is when I go out now, it's here's what we said we were going to do and here's what we did. Real numbers. I think going back and showing that track record is really, really important. Because a lot of people, and me included, show a bunch of great hockey sticks in the future. But let's talk about the past. Let's look at the past a little bit. I think that's something that really worked for us.
Yeah, that's great. If anyone else has a last question or two, now's the time. Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up. Go ahead, Nat.
Hey, first of all, thanks for sharing your story. I'm part of a company which is based in the UK, and we're planning to go to the US. So, by the way, if you would ever be interested to enter the UK market, let me know because we're quite well connected there. But what we see is that the US is the big place to be. And so far we've been trying to bootstrap as much as we can, as you mentioned, to be less dependent on investors and be more relevant to the market. But now, because moving to the US with all of our IP doing has been quite. I mean, we're going to have to fundraise. So for me right now, the two major topics are one, fundraising, to go to market, like acquiring customers. And what I want deep dive into our product, we've decided to focus on college athletes, and the whole thing is to support athletes to make money from their name, image, and likeness, because we think that's an area which has been underserved. But just out of, let's say, out of the blue, not knowing about a general company that you have never heard of, what would be your general recommendation? Like, whom do you think are the people that, like, the low hanging fruit of potential investors that would be interested in terms of a sports tech company that enters the space?
Yeah, I mean, what I've learned is there is a lot of people that are investors specifically in sports and know probably a lot about this space, and I don't know, like specific people, but like that's like the people that are investing in like youth sports, like specifically, I would target all, like look at who's doing that. I mean, because then college sports is like adjacent to that. Um, I I think there's a lot of people that are interested in investing in that space. The college athlete or specifically like the media to it. Um, I don't, without getting too specific, you know what I mean? Like I feel like there's like once you're once you find that sort of group of investors, they all talk to each other as well. So I think it's important for you to, and I can, hit me up offline and say, hey, talk to this. There's someone specific. I would just say, talk to this person and they can advise you. The other thing I would say would be like, make sure you have that advisor who kind of gets you ready for that. So when you have that first pitch, you hit it. You know what I mean? And don't rush it. Don't rush it. Like make sure like, okay, we're ready. We have this. And then once you get to that group, because the first person you talk to for that, they're going to tell everyone else like, okay, this is awesome. You know what I mean? And existing investors as well. Like it's so important that the first people that came in feel great about what you do because they're going to be your biggest advocates. They're going to call those people as well. So I would say like, you know, I can connect you to someone and, I don't know your company. I don't know anything about it, but like, hey, they'll at least tell you like, here's what we would do. Here's how this would work. It was really helpful for me to kind of have like people prep me before I was able to talk to people. And probably I was very impatient, and I'm glad that they kind of held me back until I was ready to sort of talk to people.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Gio, this has been a great 53 minutes, man. This is awesome. So we'll get this up for everyone next week on Monday. And then if you have, I'll shoot you a follow-up email, Gio, but if you have any data or stats around the adult rec space,
Yeah.
that would be awesome. Because again, I want to feature this all in our newsletter, and then obviously the podcast affiliated with it.
Yeah, I mean it's been crazy. It's been really there's been a lot of articles like, hey, this is the new like dating app, like this is how people meet each other. So it's been great. I think you'll get hopefully a lot of traction. We'll make sure we share it out with all of our members. But it's been cool to see it kind of grow. It's almost like, when we first started, even in the industry, I don't think people ever thought it would be this big, but it's kind of like that, almost that perfect storm of, people don't know how to talk to people anymore. People are all on technology. People are lonely. So youth sports has been super organized and kind of that. So now they kind of want that as adults as well. So it's an exciting time in this space, and I appreciate talking with you guys, and love talking with other founders as well. If anyone any questions, email. I think Andrew has my email and stuff. So
Yep.
I've been there. I've been some dark days in COVID where we never thought we'd really ever come back. So that it's when it happens, it's ebbs and flows. Like it's not like one day you figure it all out. We're constantly trying to figure it out.
I love it. Awesome. Well, good stuff, Gio. Thanks everyone else.
Thank you.
Have a good week, brother. Next time I'm in DC, I know where I'm gonna make a stop by. You do use a WeWork? I see your cup, or you guys have an office or something?
Yeah, and then download the Volo app, man. Let me
I
know what you
know.
think. Wait,
I need
wait,
to.
where are you right
I'm in
now?
Pittsburgh. I don't think you don't have
Not
anything here.
yet.
I know. I'm waiting for it, man. Just you got anything in Tampa or St. Pete's, or what about Florida?
Nothing in Florida yet. Those are all like places that we need to be. We really need to be in like I said, the warm weather places, especially like Florida. It's blowing up.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. I love it. All right, bro.
Cool.
Thanks,
Thanks, man.
Gio. All right, everyone else. Peace.
Thanks, man.